There's either a sore or a cut or a burn in a very inconvenient and I would argue rather ridiculous part of my anatomy, and that's the so-called roof of my mouth. I say so-called roof of my mouth because I think we all know that's not the roof. That's not what a roof is. A roof is a thing on the outside that's exposed to the atmosphere. That's the ceiling of the mouth. It's the ceiling of the mouth. We prefer to call it the roof because, firstly, we don't like to think about what's just above that, because just above the roof of your mouth is whatever goes on in the inner workings of your nose and the things that go through your nose. We don't like to think too much about those things. We're fine with thinking about the air that goes through your nose. That's fine, but everything else, no. And we know that there is some region in behind our face somewhere that produces and temporarily stores and delays the expulsion of various things from your nose that seem to push themselves out at a ridiculous snail's pace. It's intentionally going very slow for some reason. If that would just come out once a day at a particular time of the day, just like your daily ablutions in the bathroom, there's a particular type of daily ablutions in the bathroom that people like to keep regular. And if you do that one a day, maybe your nose should follow that example. Your nose should follow the example set by your anus, I suppose. Not to be crude about it. Your nose should follow the example set by your anus. I don't think that's too much to ask. Very little is known about the ceiling of the mouth because we don't think about it very much. We don't like to. When we think too much about the ceiling of our mouth, it's like when you think about death. Your mind kind of goes, no, we're not going to think about that too much. We're not going to think about our mortality too much. And I think the same thing happens when you try to think about the roof of your mouth. You think about the tongue and the dental stuff and the throat and the cheeks. So we think about the roof of the mouth and we think, no, because there's nothing we can do about the roof of our mouth. You can't very well scrape it with a toothbrush. We're not even sure. Are you supposed to clean the roof of your mouth? Is there supposed to be something you do with it? Does mouthwash clean the roof of your mouth? Does it need cleaning? Is it safe to clean it? Is it supposed to be just left? Is it designed to handle germs or something? We know nothing about the so-called roof of our mouth. Of course, it doesn't help that it's surrounded by teeth. Well, I suppose teeth, they kind of surround it like a fortress. So that helps you not squeak the roof of your mouth with a fork. I know I've done something to the roof of my mouth about 2 days ago. I think I might have overheated a piece of lasagna and it's still sore. It hurts to drink coffee. Well, actually, no, that's an exaggeration. It hurt to drink coffee yesterday, but I drank coffee today and I found it was possible for the coffee to hurt the roof of my mouth. But then I realised it was also possible to avoid it hurting by manipulating the liquid and not splashing it up with it. Because I've been thinking about it all wrong. My hazy thinking from not having had my coffee yet, I was thinking, wait a minute, is it possible to drink this coffee without splashing it over the part of my mouth that's sore? I think, no, how can I get to the throat then? It never occurred to me, yes, of course, I can get to the throat easily by just going along the tongue and the floor of the mouth. There's no need for it to hit the ceiling of the mouth at all. That's completely unnecessary. Imagine that your mouth is like the mouth of a pelican. Doesn't matter that it's not a beak, that's okay. But imagine your mouth as being a bucket that you pour the coffee into and then you kind of tilt and then go back into your throat. There's no need for it to hit the roof of the mouth at all. You've plenty of room in the bottom of your... I think we forget that below our bottom teeth, there is a big reservoir area. You can fill it up a couple of millimeters with liquid before it overfills or anything. So that's something to bear in mind when you're drinking coffee if you've done something to the so-called roof of your mouth. So yes, I've done something to the so-called roof of my mouth, and if I sound a bit odd today in a way that's different to the way in which I usually sound odd, it might be because the roof of my mouth is somewhat sore. I think it's getting better though. It's getting better. Thankfully, energy drinks can be drunk cold, so they don't hurt it. So that's good. I've actually been drinking them at room temperature, which tells you nothing. Room temperature could be anything. At the moment, the room temperature in this room, I would say, is about average. Average for what though? Average for an unheated room? It's not an unheated room. It's heated the same way as every other room in the house. But I have the heating turned on down low. So would that mean it's lower than average? I don't know. I don't know. So the roof of my mouth, which is not the roof of my mouth, is the ceiling of my mouth. I think we can safely assume that it's healing. It'll be ready to put back into normal usage, I'd say, by tomorrow or the next day. So that's good. I've always heard the mouth is the fastest part of the body to heal. Now, of course, that doesn't extend to your dental issues. Your teeth don't grow back unless you're one of these children who's just eating their way through their first set of teeth and then they get a whole new set. Well, no, once you've used your second set of teeth, the teeth don't heal very well at all after that. They're just gone. But no, the rest of your mouth heals very quickly. The mouth controls nearly everything that goes into your body. It controls the air and the food. So it should be very, 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 very well equipped for cleansing and healing. And your mouth should be the safest place for anything to go through in your whole system. Your mouth should be like Intel, this room where they make the chips. If you're making a microchip in this room, it has to be very, 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 very clean. Cleaner than an operating theatre. It has to be as clean as be damned. If you're assembling a microchip in this room, which you'll call a factory, but it's not like any factory I've ever heard of. It's clean and white and empty and everything's just obsessively clean. What's the word for that? Before you go in, you scrub up, you put on your scrubs, you hold out your hands and the nurse puts on your gloves for you and then ties your gown round the back. And then you go in and you say, oh Christ, this patient hasn't even been made yet. It's just a few bits of metal. Oh, it's to make a chip out. Is that it? Yes. The computer chip. It's the brain of the computer. It's got all these tiny little lines engraved in it or something. And that's like having a tiny chip the size of your fingernail with a motorway system on it that can carry millions and millions and millions and millions of cars around your finger. Now, your finger isn't that big, so a motorway system that would do that would only need to be maybe 1/4 of a mile long in total. But it's running inside a phone or something, so that's quite a feat, I suppose. Quite a sterile, that's the word I was trying to think of. It has to be sterile. This place where they make the chips, it has to be absolutely sterile. Like a baby's milk bottle. I have a memory of when I was starting school. When I was 5 or 6 years of age, I have a memory. I don't know if it's a fake memory. I used to be sent to school with my school lunch, maybe a sandwich or a couple of homemade buns with margarine on them. I'd also have a drink with it, and there was milk with it. And I have a memory that I used to be given a bottle of milk, but it was in a bottle of sterilizing fluid or something. A round black bottle. Looked like something you'd put shampoo into, but it was black and had a white cap. I think the brand was Milton or something. And I have a memory of milk in a Milton bottle at school. Could that be right? Could that be something parents did in the early 1980s? I'm not going to look up what Milton is here, but I'm sure it's perfectly safe. I think it must have been some sort of sterilizing product. Told that to my wife a year or two ago and she thought that was weird. What's weird about it though? You sterilize your milk bottles when you're feeding a baby, so why wouldn't you drink out of a sterilizing product? You're probably listening to that and thinking, oh Christ, what now? What horror from his childhood is he bringing up now? We heard a few months ago that his parents were stopped because he was in the front of the car when children weren't allowed in the front of the car. We hear now that he's being fed bleach or something. No, relax. It wasn't bleach. It wasn't anything like that. We lived in a very small village down the country. We moved to the suburbs later. I think they are the cool kid would have said, our parents don't use sterilizing products and we're ignorant, so we don't know. But we've got an almost Dublin accent, so we intimidate you in some way. You were born in some village in the middle of nowhere. So I suppose in a way that's true. In a way that's true. Is that true in a way? It probably is. It probably is. Into your head. Into your head. Into your head. Into your head. Into your be some talk on the programme today about oral hygiene. Now, I don't want you to panic. It's not going to be some lecture about flossing your teeth or something. No, I don't think I've ever flossed my teeth. I may have tried to at some point. I couldn't figure it out. I think at some point, as a young man, I decided you're probably supposed to do more to your mouth than put a hairbrush in it covered in some sort of minty stuff. So I thought, you're supposed to floss your teeth. That's all I hear. Mainly I hear about it on US family sitcoms. They're always telling their children to floss their teeth, and then they're telling them to go and do their homework, and then they're telling them to eat their breakfast before they run out the door, all that sort of things. I got the floss stuff. It's basically a fishing line. Comes in a little plastic container with some sort of dispenser, and you pull it out, take a little bit of the thread. But I probably should have read the instructions. It probably tells you, pull out 3.5 inches for every 10 teeth that you have. There's probably some serving suggestion how much of the thread you should pull out for one sitting. So you pull that out and then you put it between your teeth. Every tooth pair that you have, you're supposed to floss in the gap between them. That doesn't seem very viable to me. If you have a full set of teeth, 30, 40 teeth, how many gaps have you got there? That's something like 28 gaps that you have to clean. So you go in through each individual one with this thread. You pull it back and forth like you're having a tug of war between the outside of your mouth and the inside of your mouth. How does that work? One hand on the outside of your mouth and another hand on the inside of your mouth, and you pull the floss forward and backwards through the gap between the teeth. Is that what you do? That doesn't seem very practical to me. Now that I think about it, maybe you're supposed to do 2 gaps at the same time. You pick a gap on the left side of your mouth and you pick another gap on the right side of your mouth. 2 pairs of teeth, and then you put the thread through each side of your mouth and you pull it from left to right and right to left. So you have a tug of war via your mouth, but your hands are both outside of your mouth. That would be more practical. Well, that's going to be difficult at the rear teeth, isn't it? Even the front teeth, that would loosen your teeth or increase the gaps between them. So no, I don't understand flossing. Why would you do that? Why would you do that? I don't understand. It seems like nonsense to me. But it's a program where we discuss nonsense, and there will be some further about mouth hygiene later in the program. Don't worry, it's not dental stuff. It's not dental stuff at all. It's something we don't talk about very much in terms of mouth hygiene, but it's not dental. Oh, and it's nothing obscene either, so don't worry. I do hope you enjoy it. It's meant for entertainment. It's not meant to upset you or put you in a bad mood or take you out of any bad mood that you want to remain in. Perhaps you've chosen today to be in a bad mood because you're processing some bad thoughts. Like maybe you want to remain in a bad mood. Well, if that's the case, you could probably use this show to help with that if you listen to it with the right frame of mind. But I can't control that. I have no control over your frame of mind. No more than the fellow who writes that song that you're listening on the radio has any control over what frame of mind you listen to it in. He could write the most jolly, entertaining song, and you could listen to it in a bad mood and you go, oh, this is awful. This is awful shit. Or else you could go, oh, this is extremely happy music. It's inappropriate to my bad mood. I hate it. I hope the singer dies a long, slow, painful death. Arguably, anyone who you hear on the radio is in the middle of dying. This might be over the next 7 decades, but they will eventually die, so you could argue it's a long, slow death. The pain mightn't have kicked in yet, but it will towards the end, perhaps. Hopefully there'll be better drugs available by then. Don't be wishing stuff like that on people, though. Don't be wishing people a long, slow, painful death just because you don't like the song they're singing on the radio. That's ridiculous. For one thing, it's a recording. They've no idea that they're singing on the radio at that particular moment. The DJ has pressed a button somewhere and selected them off a hard drive. The singer isn't thinking, oh, I see I'm on the breakfast show now at 6:30 on a Monday morning. I hope people are enjoying listening to me. No, that's not how it works. When I was a child, I kind of thought that was how it worked. I thought there was a singer standing in the studio and Gay Byrne would introduce a song, and I thought someone was standing in the studio singing the song, which made perfect sense. The fella is sitting there presenting the radio program. Why wouldn't the musician be there presenting their music? Why would they be in a different, deeper universe. I didn't think of it exactly like this as a child, but it seemed reasonable. The presenter would be in the same room as the performer of the music that's coming out of the same machinery as the presenter. Why wouldn't they? I didn't think, oh, wait, it's like that movie where they go into deeper levels. You know that movie where they go into the dreams? A dream within a dream within a dream, and each time you go into a further dream, it's deeper down. Well, I didn't realise as a child that the radio was like that. The fella coming out of the radio, his voice is in a studio somewhere, but the music he plays isn't in the studio with him. The singer is a further level down, possibly recorded many months or years before. So it's a deeper level into the inception. And even when you listen to a music track, there's inception within that as well. You listen to the voice, listen to the backing music. Half of the guitars are recorded in another room on a different track. They record 8 tracks of guitars and drums, and then they merge them together onto one track, so they have another 7 tracks they can use. And then they put the singer on one of them tracks. But he's not even in the same room as the fella who's playing the drums. So the drums have already been played when he's singing the music. He says, oh, I better wait till the drummer gets to this bit. No, the drummer's already been done. And he goes and sings, play the drums into my headphones. And when that happens, they don't get the drummer to play drums into the singer's headphones. No, they play a recording of a track that's already being made. The singer accompanies that from another time and another space. So that's how that works. That's Inception for you. Anyway, that's whatever I said this was. I'm quite happy with this room. I don't need the window. The window annoys me. It's too much light. I can't handle bright daylight, so I don't need a window. And the bed over there is a spare bed. The airspace over the bed goes mostly unused. So in an ideal world, there'd be a mezzanine level over the bed, maybe adjustable. It would move up into the ceiling when not in use. And on the mezzanine level, much as we could do with an extra bathroom, I don't think we'd put that on a hydraulic, movable, elevated mezzanine level above the spare bed and in front of a huge window. No. I'm sure I'd find some use for it. I've always thought a mezzanine level would come in useful. But then in recent years, I've gone off the idea of mezzanine levels in this property market hell that's going on in this country at the moment. You see pictures of tiny studio apartments, and the worst of them all have some hellish mezzanine level whereby the bed is on the floor over the toilet bowl or something, and there's a washing machine with a mezzanine level over it that has the bed on it. So mezzanine levels, they've got a bad name in recent years, so I do understand that. Mezzanine levels are a tool the government and the property market uses to try to force us into cramped conditions and trick us. So really we should turn our backs on mezzanine levels. Even if we have a place where you could make a perfectly comfortable and luxurious mezzanine level, we should say no to them, because once you open your heart to mezzanine levels, you're opening your heart to billionaire landlords, all that sort of shit. So no, say no to mezzanine levels, especially in shopping centres. You went to some shopping centre, some big old shopping centre that was built in the 1980s. There's 3 levels. It's still all go on the bottom level. That's where all the big shops are. Then you have the first floor. That's still quite busy because it has the upstairs of some of the bigger shops. And then there's a few smaller things that people are prepared to go up one flight of stairs for. But then you go up to the 3rd level, the 2nd floor as it's called here. And it's dead. Dead as a doornail. And then you see an escalator from the top of the shopping centre. Where can they possibly go? They go up and there's a mezzanine level. And it's just basically a gap between one floor and another. And the only reason there's a gap between one floor and another is because there are 2 buildings built to different scales. And you have to have a mezzanine level. There's some hellish office space or doctor's surgery that people have to go up the stairs for whether they like it or not. They say, oh, I know you don't like going up to the 4th floor of a shopping centre, but you need to go to this place. We're putting you on the 4th floor because you can't force us not to. People don't go, oh, I'm not going to that doctor. I want to be able to see that doctor's office in the shop window on the high street. and see your doctor doing some sort of blood test, or maybe a nurse would do this, a nurse doing blood tests in the shop window, essentially a living clothes horse for the doctor's services. There's a possible world that doesn't exist, but it could easily have gone this way, where doctors' surgeries were in main streets all the time, and they had a bit in the front where the nurse does all the slightly medical stuff that the doctor doesn't need to be involved with, like taking blood tests and shoving things up your nose to see if you have the latest hideous virus yet. It would be window shopping, as people used to do when high streets were still a big thing. People would spend their day walking up and down the main street of their local town, looking in shop windows. They'd see a mannequin dressed in the latest fashions. They'd see the latest Billy Joel album in the window of a record shop. They'd see the latest diet craze in the health shop window, or some powder that you shove up your nose. We promise it's nothing to do with cocaine. You shove this up your nose and it makes you very, very, very successful at dieting or something. You can well imagine in that world where there's a doctor's and there's a nurse in the shop window doing all that stuff to her patients. Can you call them patients when they're just going to get a procedure done by the nurse? You probably can't. That's how they get around it. You certainly couldn't do that with a doctor's appointment. They wouldn't let you do that in the shop window. Well, it's just they're sending you to the nurse to do a test or something, and then you serve as an advertisement and people watching you in the front window. And that's hideous. I would argue that's extremely undesirable. The fact that we've avoided that possible world, I think we should take pride in that. We managed to avoid that. This isn't a perfect world. We've taken some turn-offs in the path to get to this world that we're in today. But at some point there was a fork in the road and we didn't take the one that ended up with us taking blood tests and having things shoved up our nose publicly in the shop window at the high street. So let's congratulate ourselves for that. Take some credit for that. Let's stand up and take a bow. I'm not going to stand up. I don't podcast standing up. I don't believe in that. There are people who do their podcasts standing up. And part of the reason for that is because they're mentally ill. There's a fella used to do on News Talk Radio here, Ivan Yates. He used to do his whole show standing up. He's got a back problem or something, and they'd put a webcam on him. You see him standing up sometimes, but then sometimes you see him kind of kneeling down on the floor, but not taking a seat. And then you see the guest would be sitting down, the co-host would be sitting down, and he'd be standing or kneeling down or doing this weird kneeling down, standing up thing. He already got a lot of criticism and derision because he was a former minister who people have problems with for various political reasons. Go, this politician, he's doing stand-up on the radio on a serious news and current affairs discussion format. The morning breakfast flagship news program. He's got a problem with his back, so he can't sit. Why would sitting affect your back? You don't sit on your back, you sit on your arse. You sit on your buttocks and you sit on the back of your legs. That's what people would say. Of course, that was not accurate, but people say that. And that's what you leave yourself open for when you do stuff standing up. You also have to get a standing desk. And the people who you're with who want to stay seated then are all at different levels. Everyone's at a different level and it's all weird. Wasn't there a book some science fiction fella wrote about people in a two-dimensional universe somehow end up visiting a three-dimensional universe and they can't understand what's going on? I think it was Aldous Huxley, I'm not sure. Someone like that anyway. So if you're in a setup for a podcast where one of the people is standing up and the other one is sitting down, you might as well just not be in the same universe. Or else have a very, very, very high budget where you can have a whole system of ingenious desks that can be converted from standing desks to sitting desks at the push of a button. In which case you're too rich to be doing a podcast. Podcasts should be for poor people to do as a hobby. So don't do that, I would argue. That would be my argument. So don't do that. Once upon a time, there was a Doug, 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 basically a Doug. And this Doug, he was walking along the street one day, minding his own business, listening to podcasts on his personal stereo cassette player and radio. Now, I know what you're thinking there. You're thinking, how do you listen to podcasts on a personal radio cassette player and headphones? If that's what I said. Did I say personal radio cassette player and headphones? I'm not sure I did. I think I said personal stereo cassette player and radio. I suppose it's implied that there were headphones involved. The Walkman didn't have a speaker on it. It wasn't like the telephones of today, where you have an option of blasting it out on your speaker on the tray. No. In those days when Dougs existed and they used personal stereos, those things, they only worked over a set of earphones. You could go into what was then the pound shop. You had a £1 little speaker thing that you plug into a tiny little shitty speakers that you plug into the earphone socket of your Walkman. I tried all of that. I had every Walkman and every low brand personal stereo rip-off of a Walkman known to man. I threw around a dozen of them in my teens and early 20s until they invented something better. And so did this Doug. This Doug. Now, of course, if you're a dog, your options for listening to a personal stereo while walking are limited. You don't have pockets. Well, maybe this dog had pockets. I suppose that's possible. He's able to get a personal stereo and headphones and presumably acquire batteries of some sort. Maybe even a battery charger. Presume he's able to find some way to carry it. So maybe he has some sort of a saddle on him with pockets on it that he wears just so he can have his personal stereo in his pocket. I suppose that's possible. But they all get tangled up in everything. I stopped wearing wired earphones because I kept getting them tangled up in everything. I wear the wireless ones. I don't wear the true wireless ones though, because they're for insane people. If you're wearing true wireless earphones that don't even have a wire connecting the left earphone to the right earphone, you're insane. You're an insane lunatic, or else you're a billionaire and you treat these things like disposable one-a-day contact lenses. It's highly likely you're going to lose at least one of those per day, so you're going to have a spare in your pocket somewhere as well. And that's another thing. Even if the dog was using those, it would need a pocket to keep the spare one in. Maybe you put them on the string, like you did with gloves. When we were children, when you wore gloves, your mother would put a piece of string onto one glove. They put the piece of string up one sleeve of your coat and across the back of the inside of your coat and down the other sleeve to the other glove. I suppose you could do that with wireless earphones. Attach them by means of a piece of string or a wire or a cable or something. I suppose that's possible. And this dog, he's wearing the saddle perhaps, because he wants something to carry his Walkman in. But that leaves him open to all sorts of abuse then. Some passing kids are going to see, oh look, there's a dog with a saddle. Will we see if we can ride him like a horse? Will we do that? They had that in an episode of Family Guy. The Family Guy, I believe his name is Peter, he keeps begging his dog to let him try riding him like a horse. He forcibly rides the dog like a horse. It's quite an upsetting scene, I find. Peter in Family Guy forces himself onto his best friend, Brian the talking dog, and rides him against his will like a horse. That show, I think there's been about the same number of seasons as there's been of Air Crash Investigation. Now, of course, Air Crash Investigation is still going because there are still air crashes to be investigated. For most of those seasons, they've done at least one air crash per episode. So there's been hundreds of air crashes. There haven't been hundreds of different stories involving the Family Guy, though, to be reconstructed in the cartoon series. So you have to write those as they go along. You have to make them up out of nothing. It's not based on anyone's real life. I'm drinking tap water this week. During this recording, I'm drinking tap water. It's fresh from the tap. Absolutely the freshest water you get from the tap. In fact, I turned on the tap and I ran it for a minute. Now, that's not wasteful because I used the water that was coming out for something else. And then I filled this bottle with water from the tap. I don't mean I pissed into it. No. Anyway, this Doug, He's walking along the street, minding his own business, as I say, listening to podcasts on his personal stereo Walkman. I think he's probably recording them onto a cassette player. Would that be right? Back when they still had Walkmans, they had computers. There was an overlap between the existence of personal stereos and the existence of the internet. I do seem to remember in the 1990s, my friends who had a computer when I didn't, they had a Commodore something or other, a Commodore Amiga. They'd play games on it and you could put a tape cassette into it. Was that right? Suffice to say, it's conceivable, at least credible enough. It may not have happened, but it's credible enough to think that there may have at one point been a way to download podcasts onto a cassette that you put into a computer and then you put into your personal cassette player. I don't see any reason why not. And even at the very least, if you couldn't do that, there would be a roundabout way to transfer it. I used to record comedy shows off the long wave radio onto a cassette and then put that in my Walkman. So if I can do that, I don't see why a dog who's sophisticated enough to go around with headphones and a personal stereo and podcasts and a saddle on his back that he's prepared to wear, and he's confident enough that he's able to defend himself against anyone who might want to ride him using the saddle. I'm sure he's capable of getting podcasts onto that. Now, arguably, they weren't podcasts at all, because the podcasting system doesn't involve downloading them and then putting them onto a tape. No, there's a feed involved, and the feed mightn't have been invented. But we all know audio existed on the internet before podcasting. We all know that. We know that full well. We all know people who were doing audio on the internet before podcasting were invented. You want me to name names? There was Frank Nora from the Overnightscape. People were saying stuff before the podcast was invented. This Doug, he's walking along the street, minding his own business, listening to podcasts. The next thing that happens, a plane was crashing down from the sky, right in front of him, right in his path. Not his flight path, but it is a flight path now, because once a plane entered your path, that's a flight path. It's an erroneous flight path, perhaps, and a disastrous flight path, but it's a flight path nonetheless. So the dog says, "Oh, Christ, is that a plane?" Well, it's not a plane anymore. Or was it a plane? Or was it a bird? Or was it Superman? Well, I think I can rule out Superman because he doesn't exist. I suppose it's possible that they could have been filming a movie about a fictional Superman, and this is a stuntman who's having a bad day. Or he's having a very good day. Maybe I'll go over and check. Is he still alive? He seems to be on fire, whatever has happened. That's probably bad. Do they not keep fire engines on set? I know he's shooting on location here, but by on set, I mean on location where they're filming. If they're filming here, maybe he's got lost, so he's off location. I suppose that's possible. The dog goes over to see if it can get any response out of it. He starts licking the wreckage. He starts licking it, and then he gets very, 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 very sick, because aviation fuel is not very digestible, especially to a dog. You don't feed aviation fuel to a dog. A sensible dog will not feed itself aviation fuel. Well, that's okay. He knows not to swallow. He's just medicinally licking the wreckage in case it happens to be a stuntman who's playing Superman who's got lost and fallen from the sky, either successfully or unsuccessfully. Well, it's at least partially unsuccessful if he's lost, unless the cameras have somehow managed to follow him off track and got something usable. I suppose that's possible. So the dog decides, I think I'll pause while I'm listening to on this podcast. I'll take off my headphones and give this my full and undivided attention, just like Lassie would, or the littlest hobo, or a Flipper, or Skippy the bush kangaroo. Today is my day, but I'll get called up to be a helpful animal, possibly on TV. This might turn out to be what they call a backdoor pilot, because it is an episode of some Superman thing, and I accidentally end up saving the stuntman who's crashed here and they happen to be filming. Someone might go, this would make a good pilot for a helpful animal thing, starring this dog. And even if they decide I'm not good enough to play the dog in the spin-off, they at least have to pay me for the idea then, because it's based on my story, wouldn't they? I presume that's how it works, is it? Is that how it worked with Sully, the fella who Tom Hanks played, who saved the crash landed a plane on the Hudson River in New York or wherever the Hudson River goes, and everyone survived. Everyone stood on the wings in the water until they got safely rescued, and then they got the hell off the water. I just read Sully's autobiography. It's very interesting. He says he started flying when he was about 3 years of age. He learned to fly off some local fella. In America, they have these farmers who have planes and they go around spraying their crops. Every farm has the potential to become the next international airport. The farmer's plane takes off and they spray the crops. And then some of them, in their spare time, the farmer trains local 3-year-olds in flying the plane. So that's what happened with Sully. He got trained by a local crop sprayer fella. Your man said, here's the keys to the plane. You can come back every week and take a flight on your own because I'm going to be busy. And you can continue to learn to fly that way. It was great. With Sully, he ended up signing his autograph on things and hopefully having new opportunities from that. Pilots aren't paid as well as we seem to think. They're paid, basically, in peanuts. They give them a bag of peanuts and then they say, you can't eat these on the plane, which I think is quite reasonable. You shouldn't be eating at work. I never used to eat at my desk at work, except at lunchtime or if the boss was on holidays and everyone else was gone home and I was just writing poems on my computer about cats. I wasn't flying a plane. I was doing tedious clerical work. If you're flying a plane, especially a plane, I might have children on it who are allergic to peanuts. Now, if you're one of these older, cynical people, you might go around saying, oh, in my day, we didn't go around saying, oh, look, Christ, keep that peanut away from that child. Children were not allergic to peanuts. Well, so what? They are now. You think you know better than the allergy doctors about children dying from peanuts. Children die within a sniff of an ass's roar of a peanut. Children have seriously died. Wait a minute. It's not the phrase, an ass's roar. An ass, as in another word for donkey. There's a picture of me when I was about 8 or 9 years of age, standing beside either a donkey or a pony, one of those small horses, in Connemara, a region in the west of Ireland that's an official preservatory area for the Irish language. People who live and work there speak Irish. You have a big boggy area. Then you have a nice place you drive around. It's very scenic. All the tourists go there. They drive around Connemara and then they stop some young fella with a pony and they say, can I take a photograph of my child standing beside you? So there's a photograph of me standing beside a young fella with his pony. It was extremely hot. The sun was splitting the rocks. I remember stopping the car in the middle of Connemara just so we could go get a glass of lemonade out of a cooler in the back of the car. And going, oh Christ, we better get out and drink something because you can't drink in a car. In those days, you didn't drink beverages in a car. No. A car was a respectable, sacred place. You told your children you sit in the back with your hands folded and your feet on the ground, and your parents sat in the front and they wore seatbelts. You didn't have to wear seatbelts in the back in those days. I think the rule is now if the seatbelts exist in the back, they have to be used. Even if there's nobody in the back, which you learn the hard way. If you go shopping and decide to put some of the bags of cat litter on your back seat to spread the weight around a bit, then you get into your car and you start driving, the car starts going beep, 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 and it gets progressively louder until you stop and open the back door of the car and close the seatbelts over or under the bags of cat litter. And then the car is happy. It's perfectly happy with that. It says, that's great. You don't have a child that's not strapped down in the back of the car. Perfectly happy. You can have the bag of litter sitting on top of the seatbelt and it will still be perfectly happy then. It says, that's fine. Anyway, this fella, we stopped him. We got out, took a picture with him. There's a box of photos in this house from my childhood, non-digitized. They were taken in a proper old-fashioned instant camera. You used to get a camera, you point it at your child, or else if you didn't have any children, you pointed it at your cat. We've got a lot of pictures of cats that existed before my parents had children. My father used to go around pointing the camera at cats. They may have been black and white cats. It's hard to tell because a lot of the photos were black and white. And that's just occurred to me. I don't know what colour cats existed in those days in our family. The pictures at one point were in black and white. So I've probably been assuming for a lot of my life that my parents' first cats were black and white. They may have been yellow and purple, or blue and green, or ginger and light ginger. No way of knowing. I've just assumed they were all black and white. I do know that the first two cats they had during my childhood were black and white, because I remember I met them in person through the medium of reality. I didn't meet them through the medium of reproduced image of a spectrum of light recorded and reproduced on paper somehow. No. How did they do that? The stuff that you see, that's all light. I understand how you store light on a camera or on a computer or on a disk or on your phone. I understand that. It's just light. Light saved as ones and zeros. But how do you save light on paper? That doesn't make any sense, but my father used to do it. He'd take a picture, then he'd press a button and it would print the photo, and he'd leave it for a couple of minutes, and then you'd peel off some paper from the front of the photo, like taking the wrapping off a Pop-Tart or something, except you do that before you put the Pop-Tart in the toaster. So it's not completely comparable. So he presumably did that for all these cats before he was born. Presumably every Saturday and Sunday, which were his days off, he'd go out into the back garden. If he'd done all his gardening for the day, he'd say, "There's a cat. There's my camera. I'm going to take a photograph for future prosperity. That black and white cat. Oh, that's not a black and white cat. Well, it will be when I'm finished with it, because it's a black and white camera." You always assume it's white paper you use for black and white printing. I would wager that if you did the maths, worked out all the accounts, figured it all out, got a spreadsheet, you could probably automate this calculation. There are some things that you print that would be far more efficient to print on black paper, because more than 50% of the thing you're printing is black. So it's more efficient to just print the white stuff. So you just use white ink. Well, that never occurs to anyone. I've never had a printer that's had a message pop up saying, "Hello, I see you're printing this." I'd start off being very impressed, because it would say, "I see you're printing something that's more than 50% black. Would you consider using black paper instead of white paper? It would be more efficient." And then it would say, "Okay" or "cancel." No, it's a yes or no. That's not an okay or cancel. You're starting to sound intelligent as a computer, but okay or cancel. No, fuck that shit. Where were we with the dog? You've been paying more attention than me, presumably. You're a listener. I'm not a listener. I'll be a listener later, but I'm not a listener now, so don't judge me for not listening to what I'm saying here. I'm busy saying it. I don't have time to be listening. Even now, when I've got my head covered in these massive headphones, and there's nothing stopping them from getting through to my ears, because I shaved my head less than 5 days ago, so there's nothing in the way. There's a particularly good contact between the headphones and my head today. It's never really been an issue, but there's even less reason for it to be an issue today. It's like when they shave you to put you in the electric chair so you'll fit better. Apparently it's important that you be shaved for that. So that's what I've done here. I wasn't doing that to prepare for the podcasting chair. No, I was doing that to prepare for my head not needing to be combed every 5 minutes, because the hat that I wear all the time misshapes my hair, and I don't really need to go anywhere important in my life. So it's easier to just shave it all off and have no hair to speak of for a week or two until it grows back. And I allow it to grow freely for another several weeks, and then when it becomes a misshapen problem again, I kill it off and say, "Better luck next time." And every couple of months, I give my hair follicles a chance to start over, try again, see if we can naturally grow a proper head of hair that fits okay with my cap wearing. I wear baseball cap style headgear all day, from the minute I get out of bed until the minute I go to bed usually. Keeps the sun off my eyes, and it tends to cause my hair to become misshapen very quickly. As soon as the hair grows even a little bit, it starts to become unshaped. And I'm hoping that if I continue to shave my hair, that it'll start again every few months for the rest of my life. Trial by error, it'll eventually figure out a way to grow whereby it doesn't look ridiculous with a hat on. These are the things you can do when you're no longer go to a workplace and no one's there telling you, your head looks incorrect, please correct your hair. If the cap causes your hair to become misshapen, but you wear a cap all day from morning till night, why would it matter what your hair looks like? Well, it matters because it's not a cap, it's a visor. It's like a cap with no head part on it. It's an elasticy thing and then there's a peak at the front. So it's like the front of a cap, but then there's the elastic strap. And it's the strap that causes the misshapenness to happen. But the strap, unlike a full baseball cap, doesn't cover up my whole head. I don't want it to. I'm not trying to hide my head from anyone. But that type of visor causes misshapenness in your hair and your hair is not covered. So just to clarify that, I want to make sure this makes sense. Where were we with the dog? Oh yes, there was a crash happening right in front of him. There was either someone playing Superman in a filming thing, or there was a plane crashing down, which would be rather tragic as well. Something tragic happened in front of the dog, so it's not really something we should be using for entertainment. Are you going into your head? If you're listening to this in some godforsaken hellhole office, there's a possibility that you don't think that it's a godforsaken hellhole office. I suppose maybe then it's not, because hell is what we make of it. So it's not a godforsaken hellhole office. Maybe you think that if I was there, it would become a godforsaken hellhole office, and then you'd want out. Well, that's fine too. That's fine. Anyway, if you're listening to this in your godforsaken hellhole office, possibly in some marketing department, maybe you're designing new products to sell to people to tell them, you found a new part of your body that you have to take care of with a special cleaning product. Probably the roof of your mouth, is it? It probably is. You're probably coming up right now with new things to sell people to protect the roof of your mouth. Some sort of thing that you apply after you've flossed, but before you use your mouthwash. This cream that you apply, and it's kind of a gel, hardens on the roof of your mouth. You leave it in for about 20 minutes while you go and say your bedtime prayers or read a bedtime story to your child or have a bedtime story read to you if you're a child. Then you go back into the bathroom and then you use the mouthwash to get rid of this stuff off the roof of your mouth. And then you spit it out into the sink. Then you go to bed. That's probably what you're coming up with there in the marketing department. Well, ask the people in the science department first. I know you have to design the brand in the marketing department and come up with the need. Come up with a new need that you think us humans should have and that you need to sell to us. Or at least bring in the science department in some way. The people who make this shit. Bring them in. Maybe they're food scientists. They possibly are. They're food scientists who also do mouth hygiene products. I suppose that's reasonable because they have to design the taste to make it palatable. So maybe you have food scientists. Well, bring them in. Get them to work on that. Tell them we've come up with this need for a product to address the issue of the roof of the mouth, which most people rather irresponsibly ignore. They were afraid to even think about it. It's our job here in marketing to get people to think about things that they don't normally think about. So please design a product that cleans the roof of your mouth of whatever the roof of your mouth needs to be cleaned of. Perhaps your mouth needs a protective coating that stops you from accidentally hurting yourself. If you go sleepwalking and you have a midnight feast and you eat some lasagna that's too hot or something. So this would be for protecting the roof of your mouth at night. Obviously, your needs are different in the day than they are during the night. Because during the day, you're awake. You're wide awake. You've got your eyes open. You're on the lookout for all sorts of dangers, watching out as you cross the road to see if there's anything coming that might damage the roof of your mouth. You probably think, my mouth is perfectly safe during the day. It's perfectly safe during the day. I'm awake. The roof of my mouth is millimeters from my eyes. In fact, it's right below my two eyes. It's like I've got two sentries right above the roof of my mouth. So there's no reason to worry about the safety of the roof of my mouth. So better design a very hot food than to teach people about the need for that, I suppose. So that's probably what you do. That's probably what you do. Was it? You design something that burns the mouth off you. Give that out for free, maybe. You give something out for free with the toothpaste, and you say, here's your toothpaste that you use at night, and here's a nice snack that you can have at night after your toothpaste. Gets rid of the minty taste, because you don't like the minty taste. It ruins the taste of your glass of milk that you have when you go to bed. So you brush your teeth, and then you eat this product that you heat up in the toaster. It's not a Pop-Tart. That's a breakfast item. We don't have breakfast items at bedtime. Some sort of bedtime things. Probably a lump of cheese that you put in the toaster. It's got edible plastic around it, and then you shove that down your greedy gullet. It's a slow burning reaction that doesn't happen until a couple of hours later while you're asleep. And then you wake up wondering, why is your mouth sore? Did you injure yourself during your sleep? You have to go looking for some product to protect your mouth now. Now, I know there are things dentists give you to protect your mouth. There are devices that people put in their mouth to stop them grinding their teeth or something. But that's not going to protect the roof of your mouth. I've never had dentures. Doesn't part of the upper dentures have a place that covers the roof of your mouth? Well, that will probably hurt your roof of your mouth as well. So you should put some sort of padding in there between the roof of the mouth and the roof of the denture. Like what? I don't know. But whatever it is, it'll need to be cleaned. So you need a cleaning product for that as well. And then when you get up in the morning and you start your day all over again, you're like Bill Murray in Groundhog Day. Your alarm goes off. And is it Sonny and Cher or just Cher solo? I'm not sure. But she comes on the radio every morning on Groundhog Day and she goes, where's my harmonica? Hold on, where's my harmonica? And then there's some rummaging around for a minute, which may get edited out. And then she goes, oh, I got you, babe. Oh, I got you, babe. This must have been before she dumped Sonny. It was either him or Ike Turner who ended up dying in some horrific accident involving skiing or tobogganing or sleigh riding on a Santa sleigh or something. I think it was Sonny Bono, but that was years and years later, though. Years later. So Sonny Bono was alive and well for some time after that. I think they might have been still married when that song came out. Suffice to say, she sounded very young and happy in that song. But Bill Murray woke up to that song every day for weeks and weeks on end in that movie Groundhog Day. Have you ever seen it? You probably have. You probably have. It's about another one of these practices you Americans have, a tradition. Every spring you decide, oh, there's not enough meteorology in this world. You've got meteorologists on every channel 5 times an hour every morning, but there's still not enough meteorology on this planet to tell us when winter is going to end and spring is going to begin. And we need to know, so we're going to get this groundhog. That's some sort of a rodent or a hamster or something along those lines. What's a groundhog? Is it like a hedgehog? Maybe it is. We spent half of our childhood learning about hedgehogs in school and the other half learning about squirrels. There's 2 types of squirrels. There's a red squirrel and the grey squirrel, and that they're 2 very different creatures. They're like they're from different planets. So now you know about the hedgehog, and you know about the grey squirrel, and you know about the red squirrel. So that's like knowing about 3 completely different universes. You have a wide knowledge of nature now. So let's go for a nature walk. We'll go around the back of the school, across the football field, and down this laneway. Draw some pictures of the berries. We go down to the end of this laneway. It's got hedgerows both sides of it. It's very naturey. Very naturey. Then you get to the end of it and then you turn around and you say, children, we're going back to the school now. We'll continue our nature walk by going around the perimeter of the football field at the school, because that has hedgerows as well. It has hedgerows and ditches and trees. It has fences as well. If you get to the fence, you've gone too far. Turn back. The fence is there to keep you in. That's the perimeter. But study the stuff that's between you and the fence, the stuff that's green, the stuff that's growing. Look out for hedgehogs and squirrels, and there's birds as well. Now, we can't study them because they're all in the air. I don't know how to do a school tour in the air. I only know how to do a school tour within half a mile of the school building. Good year. Teacher kept us waiting for weeks. Everyone was going, "Where are we going on school tour this year, teacher? Teacher, where are we going on school tour this year? Teacher, 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 teacher." And then he said, "Our school tour this year will be around the town of Greystones." Now, you might not know why that would have caused disappointment. If you're in this country, you've heard of Greystones. It's quite a nice village in the outer suburbs of Dublin in the north of County Wicklow. It's a very nice village. I lived in it for a couple of years. In fact, I went to school there in primary school for a couple of years as well. Lovely seaside little village. Nice little picturesque main street. It's got a sandy beach and a stony beach and a harbour. Very nice little town, Greystones. Very, very, very nice. The reason the children were disappointed that our school tour was going to be going to Greystones was because the school was in fucking Greystones. So the school tour was going out of the school and then walking down to the centre of the village, which was a 10 or 15-minute walk, and along to the end of the village, then along by the beach and then around a bit, and bring your tracing paper and draw a picture of the church or something. And then back up to the school. We told the teacher, "That's a fucking disgusting idea. Fuck you. Fuck you." Except we were about 10 years of age, so we didn't quite say it in those terms. We were at the age where anyone who wasn't an evil little shit still thought their primary school teacher was one of the greatest people in their world. So we didn't say things like that, but there was no hiding our disappointment. Because the year before we had gone a tour. So I went into Dublin, was on a tour of the Guinness Brewery, after which I threw up because I'd been eating sweets on the bus. I threw up from the smell from the brewery. And then we went to New Grange where the hippies go. And once a year, if you stand at a certain angle under some rocks, the sun points in at a thing on the wall, and that's something to do with the winter solstice. And there, where else did we go? I went somewhere else, some monastery or something. I know the next year, we're going to Greystones. Isn't that great? If you're from Greystones, do not take that as a criticism. There's nothing wrong with Greystones. Absolutely nothing wrong with Greystones, except now the bus service. That's a bit shit. It's very unreliable nowadays since it was semi-privatised. It could do with a bigger Tesco, and the main street is kind of devoid of options for food purchasing other than upmarket coffee shops, and could do a bit more in those areas. Or apart from that, no, it's a perfectly reasonable town. Nothing wrong with it at all. As long as you don't want to live in the new places they're building there 2 miles out from anywhere, out in the middle of nowhere. Because that's where you put your new people. That's where you put your new people. You put them in some hellhole 2 miles out from town, and you have to get that bus that never comes. Apart from that, no, it's a perfectly fine town. It's just not for a school tour if your school's already there. You need to do a twinning arrangement with a school in another town and visit each other's towns. That's what you do there. That's what you do there. There's a hot clarification needs to be inserted into this show somewhere. I've already recorded it. I've recorded the clarification about my hat. Note to self, make sure you put the hat clarification in, because it's very important. I don't want to sound ridiculous. The whole thing about my hat that I wear won't make sense if I don't put in the hat clarification segment that I've just recorded in there somewhere. So that'll be in there somewhere, and if it's not in there yet, it will be now, because I'll have heard this during the production process. I better either put the hot clarification segment inserted in somewhere now, or else record a thing saying, note to self, don't forget to put the hot clarification thing in. I've already done that. This is the note to self. But it's also part of the program, so it serves 2 functions. Things can serve 2 functions. It's perfectly fine. People have kids that serve 2 functions. They function as a child, and they function as a baby goat. You can have the same thing functions as 2. Oh wait, that's not right. No, that's wrong. That's just what something people say when they're being arseholes and they hear someone saying kids. And say, oh, you're talking about kids. You're interested in baby goats. Is that right? Well, so what if they are interested in baby goats? So what? Nothing wrong with baby goats. Nothing wrong with them at all. In fact, a baby goat's probably even less wrong than your child. For one thing, a baby goat has an iron constitution, I assume, because goats are known for their ability to eat anything. They'll eat any old junk you put in front of them. It doesn't even have to be food. You can put a tree, an old iron gate, and a few bricks in a bowl or a trough for your herd of baby goats, and they'll eat that. Or maybe they don't do that until they're grown up goats. I don't know. But I presume the baby goats are on their way to having an iron constitution like that. You can feed them anything. So there'd be nothing wrong with having baby goats. And they are children, of course. Baby goats are as much children as any other species' offspring. So you're going to be snobbish about it and say, no, I don't want my children referred to as kids. Don't be so weird about that. It's perfectly fine to use words that mean one thing and also mean another thing. You sound ridiculous when you do. Oh, how are my kids, you ask? My kids are great. They're out in the field there. They're out in the field suckling off their mother. They're learning to eat bits of metal off the ground. The only way to deal with someone like that is to then report them to the animal abuse people. I don't want to do that because you're just doing it to make a point. You know damn well they don't have goats out there that they're abusing. Or they don't have children that they're abusing, which would be even worse, according to our society's rules. You don't want to do that, but you'd love to make a point, to report them to the animal abuse. They probably want to do the same to you every time you refer to your children as kids, because they get so mad about it. Say, that fella's sending his goats to school and then bringing them to the cinema and strapping them into the back of the car like they're children. I'm going to report that to the animal abuse team. No, you shouldn't do that either. The animal welfare people are not there to help you make some stupid point by making an insincere complaint just to make a point to these people about their use of terminology. So don't waste your time with that either. You may need them for something real someday, so don't do that. So I hope we've clarified everything there. If I haven't clarified my hair thing already, there's no way I could miss this now. So very happy about that now. I can carry on quite happy. Maybe if I can record another 20 minutes of something, then we can call it a day. Then I'll have a good long piss. Then we'll put on the dinner. And then we'll, I don't know, do some drugs. Don't worry, not illegal drugs. Do some drugs for this. What's wrong with doing drugs? That's a question. That's a very wide question that if I do a whole podcast series on and still not answer. In fact, people probably have. You can't find them because they probably get blocked by YouTube and everywhere else. Oh, this thing contains drugs. No. I mentioned a few months ago the Phoenix Park in Dublin, where there's Dublin Zoo, and beside it, the thing that I consider to be a mini White House where the Irish president lives. And I used this in a segment that I posted on TikTok, and I got blocked from something because it automatically detected political campaigning for the American election. It's not allowed under US law. This can't be on US something or other. So you have to be careful with these things. And that's why people are reluctant to say drugs, or they're reluctant to say that they're taking drugs, which I'm not. I don't take drugs. I don't take drugs. Oh wait, do I take drugs? Well, there's some lozenges in here, and there's some diarrhea medicine. I'm not taking that at the moment, but it is in here for that stuff. Now, am I taking drugs, though? Well, I took some caffeine today and taurine. You probably call those drugs. I'm probably going to drug myself with food in a while. You might call that drugs. And now when I publish this in the next day or two, I'm abusing for recreational purposes the little chemical that my brain makes when you enjoy one of my recordings on the internet, just as when you publish a picture of your cat on Facebook. You get a little tingle in your brain. It's a natural drug that your brain makes. That's considered drug abuse. So I suppose I'm doing that. In which case, arrest me and put me in handcuffs. I'll say, hello, Your Honour, I did drugs. But it was natural drugs that my brain created. So there's no reason for me to be here. Your time is being wasted by these people. I suppose you could call them the police. Is that what they are? Maybe they are. Or maybe they're kidnappers. Maybe they're impersonators. Maybe you're an impersonator. Maybe this is an episode of Boston Legal. I've been rewatching Boston Legal the last few days. I highly recommend Boston Legal. I think it's on Disney Plus here. This isn't a paid promotion, by the way. I'm just saying it's a program I enjoy. If you enjoy a program that I make, then it stands to reason that you also might enjoy a program that I enjoy that someone else made. I think that's the conclusion we come to out of all this. Watch Boston Legal.
Into your head.
Now, it's funny you should mention Boston, which I did. I mentioned Boston Legal. Boston Legal, like many other American shows set in a major metropolitan area. Between the scenes, they show bits of the city and they show the skyline. Boston Legal, they show very fast-moving pictures of buildings in the city, some of which I'm familiar with because I spent quite a lot of time in Boston. So I recognise these things. I recognise, for example, the Hancock Building, which is also the building used as some sort of headquarters in the series Fringe. They don't make it entirely clear which building they're claiming that Boston Legal is set in, but it does appear from some of the pictures they show that move very fast, it does appear they might be suggesting that the legal practice about which Boston Legal is the focus is in a building very close to the Hancock Tower, which also serves as a headquarters in Fringe. That's almost the whole part of TV that I'm quite familiar with now. I spent quite a lot of time around there. Now, the Boston Marathon bomber, unfortunately, also spent some time around there. And it used to be back in the old days, I could look at things like that and you'd see the Hancock Tower and Copley Square and the Prudential Centre. I go, oh, I was there. I remember that. I was there. I've walked down that street. I was there. I've sat in that park. But nowadays I go, oh, I was there, and so unfortunately was the Boston Marathon bomber. And that does cast an unfortunate downer on it. Still, it's a fine city, and the buildings are still there, thankfully. It's a fine city. Don't be put off by the fact that Fringe is half set there. Don't be put off by the fact that the Boston bomber was there at some point. He kind of had to be. He's the Boston bomber. Where else would he go? Dublin has had bombers too. Everywhere has had some sort of bomb or some sort of scumbag do bad stuff. But inevitably, they have good stuff happen as well. They have had good stuff happen in Boston, I'm sure. They had that tea party. Wasn't that a good thing? They poured all the tea into the river, something to do with politics. I haven't been to Boston in some time. If I were to go there now, I don't think I'd even know where to go to find a public toilet at 10 minutes' notice. I suppose the Prudential Tower would be a good place to start because it's got a huge shopping centre in it. They usually have toilets. Do they still have toilets? Maybe you've stopped having public toilets in Boston. I hope you haven't let that stuff change you. Don't let the terrorists win with that sort of thing. I hope you still have public toilets in shopping centres. I hope you still have pharmacies that have very, very, very cold air conditioning available on a hot day. I think we're approaching the end of this episode of Into Your Head podcast. Goodbye. Now I'm always afraid you'll hear me say it's the end of the program and then you'll stop and just move on to the next thing. No, this is just the beginning of the end. This is like when you retire at 65 or 70 or 75 or whenever people retire nowadays. You don't say, oh, I'm finished now. This is the end. I'll climb into my grave. Please nail the lid on. Make sure I'm dead. I don't feel dead. Maybe I should die first. Well, yes, that's because you've gone too early. No, it's not the end. It's the beginning of a new stage of your life. When you get to 70 and you've paid off your mortgage, you don't say, oh, I'm retired and I've paid off my mortgage. That's it now, it's over. No. You get a reverse mortgage then, and then you hope to live another 30 years, and the bank hopes you live another 3 years, and in reality, maybe another 10 or 15. You get a reverse mortgage. It's like you get to the end of side one of an old audio or video cassette tape, and then you turn it around and you play back the other side. You get a reverse mortgage. Unfortunately, it's designed so that you'll be dead long before you get to the end of side 2. Anyway, suffice to say, we're approaching the end of the program. This program is the equivalent of you now being in your late 70s. Perhaps you've developed whatever disease or condition is finally going to take you from us. Perhaps you're not. Perhaps you're doing very well. Perhaps you feel like a whole new person with a whole new lease of life. Now that you don't have to get up out of bed in the morning, you're not tired anymore. You just sit there on your bed and you think, my legs don't even hurt anymore because I don't use them, or I just sit in bed, have the nurse bring food to me on a tray, one of those little trays that slides in over the bed. Those are overrated. I have one in here beside the desk, one of those trolleys that's supposed to fit in under the bed and over the bed at the same time. The bottom of the trolley is supposed to fit in under the bed, and the table part is supposed to fit over the bed, and you're supposed to be able to eat off it while you're in bed. Unfortunately, the bed has to be designed to accommodate one of those. If you've got one of those beds that you can't push a trolley under, then that's no use to you. That's no use to you. I used to use that trolley as my recording table. I had to attach 2 huge metal weights to it using tape to stop it from toppling over. So that's what being in your late 70s is going to be like. As opposed to sitting in bed and not being sore thing might heal to you. But who's going to answer the door? Say you get Meals on Wheels, which you may well do if that's your situation. You still have to answer the door, or else they put it in a box outside the door. I knew someone who got Meals on Wheels. They tell you need to get a box in the porch so the ants don't get at it if you're not at the door. So you have that to think about then. You're sitting there relaxing, you're thinking, oh, it's 12 noon, I'll get up and get my dinner in an hour or two. It's in the porch. Don't leave it too long because the ants will get it. You're probably in another country now where you have climates and things, and you're thinking, oh Christ, I wouldn't leave stuff out to ants. Box or no box for 2 or 3 hours. No, go out and get your little Meals on Wheels dinner. You bring it in. You can't put it in the microwave. It's in a foil tray. You have to transfer it onto a plate and then you heat it up. And then you go, what do I do with the foil tray? I suppose I could wash it and use it next time I'm actually cooking something, which you will be doing because Meals on Wheels only comes 2 days a week in many areas. It's all run by volunteers. So if you're able to cook your own shit, you're going to feel enormous guilt every time you accept a delivery from those volunteers because you're well able to cook. Maybe you're rich, just buy a delivery from a commercial food delivery place. A pizza every day for breakfast. Well, you'd have to live in a city for that. You city dwellers think that anywhere you live, if you have money, you can get pizza for breakfast. That's not the case. A lot of little towns, at least on a weekday, there's nowhere you can get a pizza delivered before 3 p.m. And they're not going to deliver you a bowl of cereal in the morning. No. You spoil it because you lived in a city somewhere. Perhaps you lived beside the Fringe building in Copley Square in Boston and you thought, oh, look, anything delivered day or night, night or day, day or night. No, that's bollocks. That's not what the real world is like. If you live in a city centre, you're not living in the real world. You've probably never seen a hedgehog or a squirrel, a grey squirrel or a red squirrel. Probably never been for a nature walk other than in that park with the ducks. That park with the ducks. You probably think every natural woodland has a ornate curved stone bridge going over it and paths connecting it to the big shopping areas. You probably think there's duck tours and swan boats through every stream in the country. No. You're a very, very unrealistic view of the world if you live in a city centre, I can tell you. Very, very unrealistic. Anyway, I think that's the end of the programme. Is that a cat at my ankle? Oh, wait, no. I thought there was a cat at my ankles. No, it's just the headphone extension cables rubbing it against my ankle. This room has been closed for at least 3 hours now. So that would imply it's been sitting quietly while I'm saying all this shit. It's unlikely. Anyway, good morning.